Captain Marcus Chen never expected his routine supply run to the outer colonies would change the course of galactic history. The cargo ship Prometheus hummed quietly through space as Marcus reviewed the manifest for the third time that day. Medical supplies, food rations, and mining equipment bound for Kepler 442b. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous. That was before the distress signal. The communication array crackled to life with a transmission unlike anything Marcus had heard before. The voice was melodic, almost musical, but carried an undertone of desperate urgency. The words came through the universal translator with crystal clarity. "This is Queen Zaratiel of the Valethra Empire. My ship is damaged. I require immediate assistance. Any vessel within range, please respond." Marcus hesitated. First contact protocols were clear about engaging with unknown alien species, especially those claiming royal status. But something in the voice made him reach for the communication controls. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus. What is your location and the nature of your emergency?" A pause followed, then, the voice returned with what sounded like relief. "Captain Chen, I am transmitting my coordinates now. My vessel has suffered critical damage to our life support systems. I have perhaps 6 of your Earth hours before complete failure." The coordinates appeared on Marcus's navigation screen. The alien vessel was only 2 hours away at maximum burn. Marcus made his decision quickly. He changed course and pushed the engines to their limit. The ship he found floating in the void defied description. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of his cargo vessel, but graceful in design. Flowing curves and crystalline structures caught the light from the nearby star, making it seem almost alive. However, Marcus could see the damage immediately. Scorch marks covered one entire section, and atmosphere was venting from several breaches. "Queen Zaratiel, this is Captain Chen. I'm seeing significant damage to your vessel. How many souls are aboard?" "Only myself, Captain. This is my personal craft. I was traveling to the peace negotiations on Centauri Prime when we were attacked by raiders." Marcus maneuvered the Prometheus alongside the alien vessel. Through the viewports, he could see movement inside the damaged ship. A figure in flowing robes moved with purpose through what appeared to be a command deck. "Your Majesty, I'm going to attempt a docking procedure. My ship has basic life support, but you'll need to bring any specialized equipment you might require." "I understand, Captain. I am grateful for your assistance." The docking took nearly an hour. Alien ship designs didn't follow human standards, and Marcus had to improvise several connections. When the airlock finally sealed and pressurized, he found himself face to face with royalty from another world. Queen Zaratiel was unlike anything he had imagined. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Her hair was silver white and moved as if underwater, defying gravity. Most striking were her eyes, large and luminous, colored like deep amethyst. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, constantly shifting and flowing. "Captain Chen," she said, her voice carrying the same musical quality he had heard over the communications. "You have my deepest gratitude. I am Queen Zaratiel, sovereign of the Valethra Empire and primary delegate to the Galactic Peace Accords." Marcus felt suddenly underdressed in his standard cargo pilot uniform. "Just Marcus is fine, Your Majesty. Let me show you to the guest quarters. They're not much, but they're safe." As they walked through the corridors of the Prometheus, Marcus couldn't help but notice how the Queen moved with fluid grace, as if she were dancing rather than walking. Her presence filled the small ship with an otherworldly energy that made the air itself seem charged. "Your vessel is quite compact," she observed, running one elegant finger along the wall. "But I sense great strength in its construction. Much like its captain, I would imagine." Marcus felt his cheeks warm at the compliment. "It's just a cargo hauler, nothing fancy. But she's reliable. How long will it take to reach Centauri Prime?" 3 days at your current speed. However, Captain, I must warn you that my presence here may place you in considerable danger. The raiders who attacked my ship were not random pirates. They were sent specifically to prevent me from reaching the negotiations." "Why?" What's so important about these peace talks? Queen Zaratil paused at the entrance to the guest quarters, her amethyst eyes studying Marcus intently. The galaxy stands on the brink of war, Captain. 7 major species have formed alliances, and tensions grow daily. The Vaelthera Empire holds the deciding vote in the peace accords. There are those who would prefer conflict to cooperation. Marcus absorbed this information as he showed her the quarters. They were small but comfortable, with a bed, desk, and private washroom. The Queen examined everything with curiosity. These accommodations are quite acceptable, Marcus. May I ask, are you married? Do you have a family? The question caught him off guard. No, Your Majesty. Cargo pilots spend most of their time in space. Doesn't leave much time for relationships. Something flickered in her eyes, an expression he couldn't quite read. I see. That is unfortunate. A male of your obvious quality should have offspring to carry on his lineage. Before Marcus could respond to that rather personal observation, the ship's proximity alarms began blaring. He rushed to the bridge with the Queen close behind. The scanner showed 3 ships approaching fast, their configuration matching military vessels. Korthak raiders, Queen Zaratil said grimly. They must have followed my escape pod's trail to your ship. They will not stop until they capture or kill me. Marcus's hands flew over the controls, pushing the engines to emergency power. Hold on, Your Majesty. The Prometheus might not look like much, but she's got some surprises. The lead raider ship fired a warning shot across their bow, followed by a transmission in harsh, guttural tones. The universal translator struggled with the language before producing a rough approximation. Human vessel, surrender the Vaelthera female or be destroyed. Marcus looked at Queen Zaratil, who stood with regal composure despite the danger. Your choice, Your Majesty. I can try to outrun them, or we can see if they're serious about that threat. You would risk your life for someone you met only hours ago? You're under my protection now. Besides, I never liked bullies. The Queen's expression softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch sent an unexpected warmth through his body. Then, let us see what your ship can do, brave Marcus. The chase that followed tested every system on the Prometheus. Marcus had modified his cargo hauler over the years, adding more powerful engines and defensive systems than most civilian vessels carried. He pushed the ship through asteroid fields and nebula clouds, using every trick he knew to lose their pursuers. The raiders were persistent and well-armed. Weapons fire lit up space around them as Marcus performed evasive maneuvers that shouldn't have been possible in a ship the Prometheus's size. Queen Zaratil watched in fascination as he worked the controls with practiced skill. You handle your vessel like a warrior handles his blade, she observed. There is poetry in your movements. Less poetry, more physics, Marcus replied through gritted teeth as another blast shook the ship. But, thanks for the compliment. During a particularly violent evasive maneuver, the Queen was thrown against Marcus's command chair. For a moment, they were pressed close together, and Marcus caught a scent like spring flowers mixed with ozone. When their eyes met, something passed between them, an electric moment of connection that had nothing to do with the danger they faced. Sorry, Marcus said, helping her steady herself. Do not apologize, she replied softly. Among my people, such contact has significance. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, his tactical display showed more ships approaching. For a terrifying moment, he thought more raiders had arrived. Then, he recognized the sleek design and energy signatures. Earth Defense Fleet, he said with relief. Looks like the cavalry has arrived. 3 human warships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately engaged the Korthak raiders. The brief battle was decisive. The superior firepower and training of the Earth fleet made short work of the alien pirates. Within minutes, the immediate threat was over. Admiral Sarah Rodriguez appeared on the main screen, her weathered face showing concern. Captain Chen, are you all right? We picked up your distress beacon and came as fast as we could. We're fine, Admiral. But I have a VIP passenger who needs to reach Centauri Prime urgently. Queen Zaratil stepped into view of the camera, causing visible shock on the Admiral's face. Admiral Rodriguez, I am Queen Zaratiel of the Valfara Empire. Captain Shen has saved my life and protected me from those who would prevent peace between our species. Your Majesty, Admiral Rodriguez said, recovering her composure quickly. The fleet will escort you safely to Centauri Prime. Captain Chen, you're to be commended for your actions today. As the fleet formed up around the Prometheus, Marcus felt a strange mixture of pride and disappointment. The adventure was over, and soon his unusual passenger would return to her world of galactic politics and royal duties. He would go back to hauling cargo between colonies, and this extraordinary day would become just a memory. But Queen Zaratiel had other ideas. Captain Shen, she said as they prepared to enter hyperspace, when we reach Centauri Prime, I would like you to remain as my personal escort during the negotiations. Your courage and skill have impressed me greatly. I'm honored, Your Majesty, but I'm just a cargo pilot. I wouldn't know the first thing about diplomatic protocol. Perhaps not, she agreed, moving closer to him at the navigation console. But you know about loyalty, honor, and protecting those who depend on you. These are qualities that matter far more than protocol. Her proximity was affecting his concentration again. There was something about her presence that made his pulse quicken and his thoughts scatter. I suppose I could stay for a few days. The cargo delivery can wait. Excellent, she said, placing her hand over his on the controls. I have a feeling this arrangement will benefit us both. The journey to Centauri Prime took 2 days through hyperspace. During that time, Marcus learned more about Queen Zaratiel and her people than he had ever known about any alien species. The Valfara Empire was ancient, spanning dozens of worlds across 3 star systems. They were a peaceful people, preferring diplomacy to warfare, but they possessed technology that made them powerful allies or dangerous enemies. Queen Zaratiel herself was a fascinating paradox. She could discuss complex political theories one moment and laugh at Marcus's stories about his adventures as a cargo pilot the next. She was brilliant, compassionate, and surprisingly lonely for someone who ruled an empire. Do you ever regret your position? Marcus asked as they shared a meal in the ship's small galley. Being responsible for so many people's lives? Regret is too strong a word, she replied, stirring what appeared to be tea but smelled like cinnamon and starlight. But I sometimes wonder what it would be like to make choices based on personal desire rather than political necessity. What kind of choices? She was quiet for a long moment, her amethyst eyes studying his face. Among my people, marriage is often arranged for political advantage. I have ruled for 50 of your years, yet I have never experienced what you humans call love. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. 50 years? But, you look. We age differently than humans. I am still considered young by Valfara standards. I am told that I will live for many centuries more. Her voice carried a note of sadness. Centuries of duty and obligation, with little room for personal happiness. That sounds incredibly lonely. It is, she admitted. But loneliness is a small price to pay for peace between worlds. Their conversation was interrupted by Admiral Rodriguez's voice over the communication system. All ships were approaching Centauri Prime. Prepare for normal space transition. The blue-white disk of Centauri Prime appeared on the viewscreen as they dropped out of hyperspace. The planet was a marvel of terraforming technology, with sprawling cities connected by maglev transport networks. Orbital stations surrounded the world like artificial moons, each one hosting delegates from different species. It's beautiful, Marcus said, watching the planet grow larger as they approached. Yes, Queen Zaratiel agreed, but she was looking at him rather than the viewscreen. There is beauty to be found in unexpected places. The docking procedures at Centauri Prime were complex, involving security scans and diplomatic clearances that took several hours. During that time, Marcus found himself growing nervous about the role he was about to play. He had agreed to be the Queen's personal escort, but he was beginning to understand that this might involve more than just standing around looking official. When they finally disembarked, Marcus was amazed by the sheer diversity of life forms moving through the spaceport. He recognized a few species from news broadcasts, but many were completely alien to him. Crystalline beings that sang in harmonic frequencies, gaseous entities contained in environmental suits, creatures that look like living geometric patterns. Stay close to me, Queen Zaratil advised as they made their way through the crowds. Not all species here are friendly to humans. She had changed into more formal attire for the negotiations, robes that seemed to be woven from liquid light itself. Her presence commanded respect and attention from every being they passed. Marcus felt distinctly out of place in his best civilian clothes, but the Queen's hand on his arm provided comfort and confidence. The diplomatic quarter of the station was a marvel of engineering, designed to accommodate the environmental needs of dozens of different species. Some areas were flooded with liquid methane, others maintained crushing atmospheric pressure, and still others existed in hard vacuum. The central meeting chambers used force field technology to allow all delegates to participate while remaining in their preferred environments. Captain Chen, Admiral Rodriguez appeared beside them as they approached the main conference hall. I've been briefed on your role here. Security will be tight, but Queen Zaratil has requested that you be given full diplomatic access. I appreciate that, Admiral, but I'm still not sure what I'm supposed to do. Be yourself, Queen Zaratil said simply. Your presence alone will serve my purposes. The opening ceremonies were unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Representatives from 7 major galactic civilizations presented their positions on the proposed peace accords. The Korthak delegation, led by a massive warrior with scarred hide and blazing red eyes, made it clear that they favored military expansion over diplomatic cooperation. The weak deserve conquest, the Korthak delegate growled, his words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. Peace is merely the interval between wars. Other species argued for various forms of cooperation, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. The debate continued for hours, with each delegation presenting complex arguments backed by historical precedent and strategic analysis. Throughout it all, Queen Zaratil remained silent, listening intently to every word. Marcus noticed that many of the delegates kept glancing in her direction, waiting to hear her position. The Valthera Empire's vote would apparently tip the balance one way or another. During a recess, several delegates approached Queen Zaratil directly. A serpentine being with iridescent scales spoke in sibilant tones. Your Majesty, surely you see the wisdom in our proposal for limited military intervention. The Korthak grows stronger each day. Peace through strength is still peace, added a delegate that looked like a walking crystal formation. Your empire's support would guarantee stability. Queen Zaratil listened politely to each argument, but committed to nothing. Marcus could see the weight of decision-making wearing on her. The fate of billions of lives rested on her choice, and every option carried significant risks. You're handling this incredibly well, Marcus told her during a private moment between sessions. I can see why your people chose you as their leader. I was not chosen, she replied quietly. I inherited the throne when my mother died in battle against Korthak raiders. I have spent every day since trying to prove myself worthy of her legacy. From what I've seen, you've succeeded. She turned to look at him with those remarkable amethyst eyes. Your opinion matters more to me than you might realize, Marcus Chen. Before he could respond, they were called back to the conference chamber for the evening session. The debates continued, growing more heated as the stakes became clear. Several species threatened to withdraw from the negotiations entirely if their demands weren't met. The Korthak delegate made barely veiled threats about the consequences of opposing their expansion plans. Through it all, Marcus found himself watching Queen Zaratil with growing admiration. She remained calm and dignified despite the pressure from all sides. Her presence seemed to be the only thing preventing the negotiations from collapsing into chaos. As the session ended for the day, Marcus escorted the Queen back to her diplomatic quarters. The accommodations were luxurious by any standard, with environmental controls adjusted to Valthera preferences. The air was slightly cooler and more humid than human normal, with a faint scent of exotic flowers. Thank you for your patience today, she said as they entered the main room. I know this cannot be easy for you, being surrounded by so much alien politics. Actually, it's fascinating, Marcus replied honestly. I had no idea how complex galactic diplomacy could be. But, I have to ask, what exactly did you mean when you said my presence alone would serve your purposes? Queen Zaratil moved to a window overlooking the planet below. City lights twinkled like stars against the darkening surface. Marcus, there is something I must tell you about Vailthra culture. Something that will explain many things. She paused, as if gathering courage for what she was about to say. Among my people, the choice of a mate is perhaps the most important decision a ruler can make. The royal consort becomes not just a spouse, but a symbol of the empire's values and direction. Marcus felt his heart begin to race. Your Majesty, I'm not sure I understand. My mother ruled for 3 centuries without taking a consort. She believed that attachment to another would weaken her judgment. But her isolation also made her bitter and suspicious. I swore I would not repeat her mistakes. She turned to face him directly. When I chose to accept your protection, Marcus Chen, I was making a statement about the kind of ruler I intend to be. What kind of statement? That courage and loyalty matter more than political calculation. That sometimes the heart knows wisdom that the mind cannot grasp. She stepped closer to him, her voice growing softer. That even queens can choose love over duty. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Your Majesty, are you saying? I am saying that in the 48 hours since we met, you have shown me qualities that centuries of courtiers and diplomats have failed to display. You risked your life to save mine without thought of reward. You treat me as a person rather than a title. And, when I look at you. She reached out to touch his face gently. When I look at you, I see the future I want for my empire and myself. But, I'm just a human cargo pilot. You're the ruler of an interstellar empire. The political implications alone will be significant, she agreed. But, not insurmountable. The Vailthra people respect strength and honor above all else. They will accept my choice if I present it properly. Marcus struggled to process what was happening. You're talking about marriage? Between us? I am talking about partnership, she corrected. Among my people, the royal consort shares power with the sovereign. You would become not just my husband, but co-ruler of the Vailthra Empire. The magnitude of what she was suggesting made Marcus's head spin. Your Majesty. Zara. I don't know anything about ruling an empire. I wouldn't know where to start. You would learn, she said simply. And I would teach you. The question is not whether you are qualified, Marcus. The question is whether you are willing. Marcus looked into her amethyst eyes and saw hope, vulnerability, and something that might have been love. The practical part of his mind screamed warnings about the insanity of what she was proposing. The rest of him wondered if this was the opportunity of a lifetime or the most beautiful trap ever devised. Why me? He asked quietly. You could have anyone. Powerful allies, brilliant strategists, wealthy nobles from a dozen worlds. Why choose a simple cargo pilot? Because, she said, moving even closer until he could feel the warmth of her presence, in all my years of dealing with powerful allies, brilliant strategists, and wealthy nobles, none of them ever risked everything to save my life. None of them ever made me laugh. And none of them ever made me feel like a woman rather than just a queen. Before Marcus could respond, she kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, but, when he didn't pull away, it became deeper, more passionate. Her lips tasted like exotic spices and starlight, and her touch sent electricity through his entire body. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. There is one more thing you must know, she whispered against his ear. If you accept my proposal, if you become my consort, there will be no going back. Vailthra mate bonds are permanent. We will be connected not just legally and politically, but spiritually. Our souls will be intertwined for as long as we both live. And how long would that be? With Vailthra medical technology, you could live for centuries. Long enough to see our children grow to adulthood, to help build a better galaxy, to explore wonders beyond imagination. Children? Marcus's voice came out as a whisper. Many children, if we are blessed, she confirmed. The genetic compatibility between our species is remarkably high. Our offspring would be extraordinary, combining the best traits of both our peoples. Marcus felt as if he were standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss that could either destroy him or transform him into something greater than he had ever imagined possible. "I need time to think about this," he said finally. "Of course," she replied, though he could see disappointment flicker in her eyes. "Tomorrow the negotiations will conclude. I must cast my empire's vote by sunset. Whatever you decide, Marcus, know that you have already changed my life in ways I never thought possible." That night, Marcus lay awake in his guest quarters, staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of his situation. Less than a week ago, he had been a simple cargo pilot with a simple life. Now he was being offered the chance to become co-ruler of an interstellar empire and husband to one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The rational thing would be to politely decline and return to his old life. The safe thing would be to wish Queen Zaratiel well and walk away from complications that could reshape galactic politics. But, as he thought about the loneliness in her eyes, the courage she had shown in the face of danger, and the warmth of her touch, Marcus began to realize that the safe choice might not be the right choice. The next day would bring the conclusion of the peace negotiations, and, with it, a decision that would affect not just Marcus and Queen Zaratiel, but the future of countless worlds across the galaxy. As dawn broke over Centauri Prime, Marcus Chen prepared to make the most important choice of his life. Marcus woke before dawn to find a message waiting on his personal communicator. Queen Zaratiel had requested his presence for a private breakfast before the final negotiation session. As he dressed, Marcus realized he had made his decision sometime during the restless night. The question now was whether he had the courage to follow through with it. The Queen's quarters were filled with soft morning light filtering through the panoramic windows. She stood silhouetted against the view of Centauri Prime's capital city, her silver hair catching the sunlight like spun platinum. She had chosen simpler robes for their private meeting, and Marcus thought she looked more beautiful than ever. "Did you sleep well?" she asked without turning around. "Not really," Marcus admitted. "I had a lot to think about." "As did I." She faced him then, and he could see the weight of responsibility in her amethyst eyes. "Today I must decide the fate of 7 civilizations. The vote I cast will either preserve peace or condemn the galaxy to war. Have you decided how you'll vote? That depends partly on your answer to my proposal." She moved to a table set for 2, where an array of foods from different worlds had been arranged. "Sit with me, Marcus. Let us eat, and then we will discuss the future." The meal was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Fruits that changed flavor as they were eaten, protein that had been synthesized to taste like the finest earth beef, and beverages that sparkled with their own inner light. Throughout it all, Queen Zaratiel watched him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You said your vote depends partly on my answer," Marcus said finally. "What did you mean by that?" "The Vaelthera Empire has always been guided by principles of honor and unity," she replied carefully. "If I choose a human as my consort, it sends a clear message about our commitment to cooperation between species. It would make supporting the peace accords not just politically wise, but personally meaningful." Marcus understood the implications immediately. "And if I say no? Then, I must question whether interspecies cooperation is truly possible. If a human who has seen the best of Vaelthera character cannot bring himself to trust us completely, how can we expect entire civilizations to do so?" The weight of her words settled on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Marcus realized that his personal decision could influence the future of galactic peace. It was both flattering and terrifying. "That's a lot of pressure to put on one person," he said. "Yes, it is," she agreed. "And I apologize for that burden. But leadership often requires difficult choices, Marcus. This is one of them." Marcus set down his cup and looked directly at her. "Before I give you my answer, I need to know something. Yesterday, when you kissed me, was that calculation or emotion?" For the first time since he had met her, Queen Zaratiel looked uncertain. A faint blue flush colored her pale skin, and she avoided his gaze. "That is a fair question," she said quietly. "And one I have asked myself many times since last night. What conclusion did you reach?" She was silent for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the table surface. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I have spent my entire life learning to separate duty from desire, to make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. But, when I am with you, Marcus, that careful control breaks down. You make me feel things I have never experienced before. Things that terrify me because they are so powerful, so consuming. She looked up at him then, and Marcus saw something raw and vulnerable in her expression. So to answer your question, that kiss was pure emotion. Dangerous, reckless emotion that could have compromised everything I have worked for. And I find that I do not care. Marcus felt his heart racing. The admission cost her something to make, he could see that. A queen who had spent decades maintaining perfect control was confessing to losing that control because of him. What exactly are you feeling? He asked gently. I believe you humans call it love, she replied with a tremulous smile. Though among my people, the concept is more complex. We form bonds that transcend mere attraction or companionship. When Valthera truly love, it becomes a connection of souls, minds, and life forces. It is overwhelming. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. Her skin was soft and warm, and he felt that same electric tingle he had experienced the first time she touched him. Zara, he said, using her personal name deliberately, I need you to know that what I'm about to say has nothing to do with galactic politics or peace negotiations. It's purely personal. Tell me, she breathed. I love you too, Marcus said simply. I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for a few days. I know there are a million practical reasons why this is impossible. But, from the moment you stepped onto my ship, something changed inside me. You're incredible, Zara. Beautiful, brilliant, compassionate, strong. Any man would be honored to be chosen by you. Tears began to flow down her cheeks, leaving trails of silver on her pale blue skin. You cannot know what it means to hear you say that. For so long, I have wondered if anyone would ever see past the crown to the woman beneath. I see you, Marcus said, squeezing her hand gently. And my answer is yes. If you'll have me, if your people will accept me, I want to be your consort. I want to stand beside you and help build the future you envision. Queen Zaratiel closed her eyes and took a deep, shuddering breath. When she opened them again, the tears were gone, replaced by a look of profound joy and determination. Then, let us make history together, she said. The final session of the peace negotiations began 3 hours later. Marcus stood beside Queen Zaratiel's chair in the main chamber, trying to ignore the curious stares from delegates of 6 different species. Word of the human cargo pilot's presence at the Queen's side had clearly spread through the diplomatic community. The session opened with final statements from each delegation. The Korthak representative, a battle-scarred warrior named General Vortak, delivered what amounted to an ultimatum. The Korthak hegemony has been patient long enough, he growled, his massive frame bristling with barely contained aggression. We demand expansion rights to 12 unclaimed systems, military access through 3 neutral trade routes, and tribute from all species weaker than ourselves. Refuse these reasonable requests, and we will take what is ours by force. The crystalline delegate from the Zephyrian collective chimed in harmonic disagreement. Such demands violate every principle of cooperative governance. We propose instead a mutual defense pact with shared technology exchanges and joint exploration initiatives. Other species offered their own variations on peace through strength, economic cooperation, or military deterrence. Each proposal had merit, but none addressed the fundamental issue that some species simply preferred conquest to cooperation. Finally, all eyes turned to Queen Zaratiel. As the representative of the Valthera Empire, her vote would determine which proposal became the framework for galactic governance. The chamber fell silent as she rose to address the assembly. Honored delegates, she began, her musical voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. For 3 days we have debated the merits of various approaches to peace. We have heard compelling arguments for strength, cooperation, and compromise. But, I believe we have been addressing symptoms rather than the disease itself. General Vortak leaned forward aggressively. Speak plainly, Valthera. Will you support our expansion or oppose it? I will do neither, Queen Zaratiel replied calmly. Instead, I propose an entirely different approach to this crisis. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembly. This was not what anyone had expected. Yesterday, the Queen continued, I was reminded that the most important decisions are often the most personal ones. I was rescued by a human cargo pilot who risked his life to save mine, asking nothing in return. In the hours since, I have come to understand that true peace cannot be imposed by treaties or enforced by weapons. It must grow from individual connections between people of different worlds. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. Therefore, I am pleased to announce that I have chosen Captain Marcuschan of Earth as my royal consort. Our bonding ceremony will take place in 1 week's time, creating the first formal alliance between the Velthera Empire and humanity through marriage. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Several delegates began shouting in their native languages, while others sat in stunned silence. General Vorthak's roar of outrage echoed through the chamber. "This is madness," he bellowed. "You would bind your empire to a species of primitive mammals? The Korthak will never accept such an alliance." "Then, perhaps," Queen Zaratiel said with icy calm, "the Korthak should consider whether their expansion plans are worth facing the combined forces of the Velthera Empire and the Earth Defense Fleet." Admiral Rodriguez, who had been observing from the human delegation area, stood and smiled. "Earth stands ready to honor any alliance forged through marriage to Queen Zaratiel. Our fleet may be small compared to some, but our resolve is absolute." The Serpentine delegate from the Cytherian Republic spoke next, his voice filled with cunning calculation. "This is an interesting development, Your Majesty. But surely you realize that one marriage cannot solve the fundamental conflicts between our species." "You are correct," the Queen acknowledged. "One marriage cannot solve everything. But it can serve as an example. Therefore, the Velthera Empire proposes the establishment of an interspecies cultural exchange program. We will open our worlds to immigrants, students, and traders from all peaceful species. In return, we ask only that you do the same." Marcus watched in amazement as the Queen's proposal took shape. She was offering something far more radical than anyone had anticipated, a genuine integration of species rather than mere coexistence. "Over time," she continued, "we will discover what I have learned in the past few days. That differences between species are far less important than the qualities we share. Courage, loyalty, love, hope, the desire for a better future for our children. These are universal values that transcend biology." The crystalline delegate's harmonic voice rose in approval. "The Zephyrian Collective finds this proposal intriguing. We have long believed that diversity strengthens rather than weakens civilization." Other delegates began voicing cautious support for the cultural exchange program. The concept of gradual integration through voluntary interaction appealed to species that feared both Korthak aggression and human technological advancement. But General Vorthak was not finished. "Pretty words and idealistic dreams," he snarled. "The strong will still dominate the weak, no matter how many marriages or exchange programs you create. The Korthak will not be bound by these pathetic agreements." "Then, you will stand alone," Queen Zaratiel replied. "And isolation is the one thing even the mighty Korthak cannot survive. Your empire depends on trade with other species for resources and technology. Cut yourselves off from the galactic community, and you will stagnate and decline. We have our own resources and technology." "Do you?" The Queen's challenge was delivered with quiet confidence. "The Korthak hegemony controls 14 star systems. The species represented in this chamber control over 200. Your military might is formidable, but it cannot match the combined strength of 6 allied empires working in cooperation." Marcus could see General Vorthak doing rapid calculations in his head. The Korthak were powerful, but not powerful enough to fight the entire galaxy simultaneously. "You force us to choose between submission and destruction," the general growled. "I offer you a third option," Queen Zaratiel said. "Join the cultural exchange program. Send your young people to learn from other species. Allow other species' young people to learn from you. Discover that strength and honor can be expressed through cooperation as well as conquest. And if we refuse? Then, you will face the consequences of that choice. The other 6 empires will form a mutual defense alliance that excludes the Korthak hegemony. You will find yourselves increasingly isolated as trade agreements and technology exchanges bypass your territory." The chamber fell silent as General Vorthak considered this ultimatum. Marcus could see the internal struggle playing out on the alien warrior's scarred features. Pride warred with pragmatism as he weighed the costs of continued aggression against the benefits of cooperation. Finally, the Korthak delegate spoke. The hegemony will consider participation in this cultural exchange program. But we reserve the right to withdraw if our interests are not respected. As do all species, the Queen agreed graciously. The program will be voluntary for all participants. And, just like that, the peace negotiations that had seemed doomed to failure transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Not a fragile treaty based on mutual deterrence, but a framework for genuine integration and cooperation. The formal voting that followed was almost anticlimactic. 6 species voted in favor of the Vaelthera proposal, with the Korthak abstaining but agreeing to participate in the cultural exchange program on a trial basis. Peace had been achieved not through military strength or political maneuvering, but through the promise of understanding and connection. As the delegates began filing out of the chamber, Marcus felt overwhelmed by what had just occurred. A simple rescue mission had led to a marriage proposal that had reshaped galactic politics. "Are you all right?" Queen Zaratiel asked, taking his arm as they prepared to leave. "I think so," Marcus replied. "It's just hard to believe that everything changed so quickly." "Change is often like that," she observed. "Years of gradual pressure building toward a critical moment when everything shifts at once." "You were my critical moment, Marcus. Meeting you changed everything." They were interrupted by Admiral Rodriguez, who approached with a broad smile. "Congratulations to both of you," she said warmly. "Earth is honored to be aligned with the Vaelthera Empire through marriage. Captain Chen, you've done something remarkable here." "I just followed my heart," Marcus replied, still feeling somewhat dazed by the day's events. "Sometimes that's the most important thing a person can do," the Admiral agreed. "Now, I understand there are certain preparations to be made for the bonding ceremony?" Queen Zaratiel nodded. "The ceremony must take place on Vaelthera Prime, the capital world of my empire. Marcus will need to undergo certain modifications to ensure our biological compatibility." "Modifications?" Marcus asked with sudden concern. "Nothing dangerous," the Queen assured him quickly. "Vaelthera medical technology can extend your lifespan to match mine and enhance your physical capabilities. You will remain fully human, but stronger, faster, and able to withstand environments that would normally be hostile to your species. It's similar to the genetic therapies used by long-distance explorers," Admiral Rodriguez added. "Earth Medical Command has reviewed the Vaelthera procedures. They're completely safe and reversible if you ever choose to return to baseline human physiology." Marcus found himself wondering what other surprises awaited him in his new life. "How long will the modifications take?" 3 days of treatment, followed by a week of adaptation, Queen Zaratiel replied. "During that time, you will also receive cultural briefings and language instruction. You will need to understand Vaelthera customs and protocol if you are to serve as consort to the throne." The magnitude of what lay ahead struck Marcus once again. He was about to undergo genetic modification, learn an alien language, study the customs of an interstellar empire, and marry a queen he had known for less than a week. Any rational person would be terrified. Instead, Marcus felt excited. "When do we leave for Vaelthera Prime?" he asked. "As soon as you are ready," the Queen replied, her amethyst eyes shining with joy. "The royal fleet is standing by to escort us home." "Then, I'm ready now," Marcus declared. "Let's go make history." The journey to Vaelthera Prime took 5 days through hyperspace, traveling in a convoy of 12 ships that comprised Queen Zaratiel's personal fleet. Marcus had never seen vessels like them before. They were works of art as much as machines, with flowing lines and crystalline structures that seemed to channel starlight itself. His temporary quarters on the royal flagship were larger than his entire cargo ship had been, furnished with items that demonstrated the sophisticated aesthetic sense of Vaelthera culture. Everything was beautiful, from the living crystal formations that served as light sources to the walls that could display any environment from across the empire. Queen Zaratiel spent hours each day preparing Marcus for life on her homeworld. She taught him basic phrases in the musical Vaelthera language, explained the complex social hierarchies of the imperial court, and described the history of her people stretching back thousands of years. Your title will be Prince Consort Marcus, she explained as they walked through the ship's crystalline gardens. You will have authority over domestic policy, cultural affairs, and military strategy. The nobles will test you at first, trying to determine if you are worthy of such power. How will I prove myself to them? By being yourself, she said simply. Your courage, honesty, and compassion are exactly what the empire needs. Many of our nobles have become too focused on tradition and protocol. You will bring a fresh perspective that challenges them to think differently. Marcus paused beside a fountain that defied gravity, sending streams of liquid light in slow spirals through the air. What if I make mistakes? What if I say or do something that causes a diplomatic incident? Queen Zaratiel moved closer to him, her presence warm and comforting. Then, we will handle it together. That is what partnership means, Marcus. We share both the successes and the failures. Is that how your parents ruled? As partners? A shadow crossed her face. No. My father died in the war against the Korthak when I was very young. My mother ruled alone for most of my life, and it made her bitter and suspicious. She trusted no one completely, not even me. I swore I would not repeat her mistakes. Tell me about her, Marcus said gently. She was brilliant and strong, possibly the greatest military strategist in Vaelthera history. But she was also lonely and afraid. The responsibilities of leadership isolated her from everyone who might have brought her joy. Queen Zaratiel's voice grew soft with memory. I think she would have approved of you, though. She always said that true strength comes from those who choose to fight for others rather than themselves. I hope I can live up to that standard. You already have, she assured him. When you chose to rescue me, when you chose to protect me from the raiders, when you chose to stand with me against an uncertain future, you demonstrated exactly the kind of strength she respected most. Their conversation was interrupted by Captain Thainresh, the flagship's commander, who approached with formal respect. The Vaelthera captain was tall and elegant like his queen, but his pale blue skin bore intricate tattoos that Marcus had learned indicated military rank and battle honors. Your Majesty, Captain Thainresh said with a formal bow, we are approaching the Vaelthera system. Our arrival is expected within 2 hours. Excellent, the Queen replied. Prepare the royal shuttle for immediate departure upon arrival. I wish to reach the palace before the evening ceremonies begin. Of course, Your Majesty. Prince Consort Marcus, if I may? The captain turned his attention to Marcus with careful courtesy. It will be my honor to serve as your military advisor during the transition period. The Imperial Guard is eager to meet their new commander. Marcus felt another jolt of surprise. Commander? As Prince Consort, you automatically hold the rank of Supreme Commander of the Imperial Forces, Queen Zaratiel explained. It is a largely ceremonial position during peacetime, but it carries significant influence over military policy and training. I'm a cargo pilot, not a military strategist, Marcus protested. Captain Thainresh smiled, an expression that revealed teeth slightly sharper than human normal. Your Highness, you demonstrated remarkable tactical skills during the engagement with Korthak raiders. Captain Chan's evasive maneuvers were quite impressive for a civilian vessel. That was just survival instinct. The best kind of tactics, the captain agreed. Survival instinct combined with protective courage makes for excellent military leadership. The troops will respect that. As they approached Vaelthera Prime, Marcus got his first view of the Empire's capital world. It was breathtaking. The planet appeared blue-green from space, but, instead of random continental patterns, the landmasses had been shaped by millions of years of intelligent design. Cities flowed like organic structures across the surface, connected by networks of canals and maglev transport lines that created patterns visible from orbit. It's incredible, Marcus breathed, watching the world grow larger in the shuttle's viewports. Wait until you see the palace, Queen Zaratiel said with obvious pride. It has been the seat of imperial power for over 3,000 years, built and rebuilt by each generation to reflect the empire's growth and evolution. The palace was indeed a wonder to behold. It rose from the center of the capital city like a crystalline mountain, its spires reaching toward the sky in graceful spirals. Gardens cascaded down its sides in impossible geometries, defying gravity through technology that Marcus couldn't begin to understand. As their shuttle approached the royal landing platform, Marcus could see crowds gathering below. Word of the Queen's engagement to a human had apparently spread throughout the empire, and the people were curious to see their future prince consort. "Are you nervous?" Queen Zaratiel asked as they prepared to disembark. Terrified, Marcus admitted. But also excited. "This is the adventure of a lifetime." "Our lifetime," she corrected, taking his hand as the shuttle doors opened. "And it is only the beginning." The welcome ceremony was magnificent and overwhelming in equal measure. Thousands of Vaelthera citizens lined the approaches to the palace, their musical voices rising in complex harmonies that seemed to make the air itself vibrate with joy. Marcus walked beside Queen Zaratiel through corridors lined with nobles and officials, all eager to catch a glimpse of the human who would soon become their prince consort. The palace itself defied description. Rooms flowed into one another like sections of a vast organism, with living crystal formations providing light and decoration. Gravity seemed optional in some areas, with gardens growing on walls and ceilings. The air was filled with the scent of flowers that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. "Tomorrow we begin the preparation ceremonies," Queen Zaratiel explained as they reached her private quarters. "The genetic modifications will take place first, followed by cultural instruction and formal presentation to the Imperial Council." "And then, the wedding?" "The bonding ceremony," she corrected gently. "Among my people, marriage is more than a legal contract. It is a literal joining of life forces, creating a connection that transcends physical existence." Marcus felt a flutter of nervous anticipation. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means that from the moment of bonding, we will share not just our lives, but our souls. We will be able to sense each other's emotions, share our thoughts when we choose, and draw strength from each other in times of need. It is intimate beyond human understanding." "And permanent?" "As permanent as life itself," she confirmed. "Among humans, marriage ends with death. Among Vaelthera, bonded souls remain connected even beyond physical existence." The concept was both beautiful and terrifying. Marcus realized he was about to make a commitment that went far beyond anything humans had ever experienced. "Are you having second thoughts?" Queen Zaratiel asked, reading his expression accurately. "No," Marcus said after a moment's consideration. "Just trying to understand the magnitude of what we're doing." "But my answer remains the same. I want to spend my life with you, Zara, however long that life might be and whatever form our connection takes." She moved into his arms then, and the kiss they shared carried the promise of forever. As their lips met, Marcus felt something shift inside him, as if his very soul was reaching out toward hers, seeking the connection that would soon bind them eternally. When they broke apart, both were breathless with the intensity of the moment. "Tomorrow," Queen Zaratiel whispered against his lips, "we begin the transformation that will make us one." "Are you ready, my beloved Marcus?" "I'm ready," he replied, meaning it completely. "Let's create the future together." Outside the palace walls, the celebration continued through the night as the Vaelthera people welcomed their future prince consort. But, inside the royal quarters, Marcus and Zara held each other close, counting down the hours until their lives would be forever changed by love, science, and an unbreakable bond that would reshape the destiny of an empire. The genetic modification process began at dawn in the palace's medical wing, a facility that looked more like a temple than a hospital. Crystal formations channeled healing energy through chambers filled with therapeutic pools and regeneration pods. Master healer Keth Varix, an ancient Vaelthera with silver tattoos covering his pale skin, supervised Marcus's transformation personally. "The process will take 3 days," the healer explained as Marcus settled into the primary modification chamber. "Each day we will enhance different aspects of your physiology. Cellular regeneration and longevity first, then strength and endurance, finally neural enhancement and sensory expansion." Queen Zaratiel stood beside the chamber, her hand resting on the crystal surface. "You will experience some discomfort, but nothing dangerous. I will remain with you throughout the process." "What will I feel?" Marcus asked as bioneural connections extended from the chamber walls toward him. The sensation is different for each individual, Master Healer Kethverix replied. Some describe it as warmth flowing through their veins, others as electricity dancing along their nerves. A few have reported feeling as though they are dissolving and reforming at the cellular level. That sounds terrible, Marcus said with a nervous laugh. It is actually quite beautiful, Queen Zaratiel assured him. You are not being destroyed and rebuilt, Marcus. You are being awakened to capabilities that were always within you. Valthera genetic therapy simply unlocks potential that exists in all intelligent species. The process began as a gentle tingling sensation, but quickly intensified into something far more profound. Marcus felt as though every cell in his body was coming alive, vibrating with new energy. His vision shifted and wavered as his optical nerves were enhanced, showing him spectrums of light he had never perceived before. Through it all, Queen Zaratiel's presence remained constant. She spoke to him in soft musical tones, describing what was happening and reassuring him that everything was proceeding normally. Her voice became an anchor point in the storm of sensation overwhelming his enhanced nervous system. On the second day, Marcus felt strength flowing into his muscles and bones. His cardiovascular system became more efficient, his reflexes faster, his endurance seemingly limitless. When he accidentally gripped the chamber's control surface too tightly, his fingers left permanent impressions in the crystalline material. How strong am I now? He asked Master Healer Kethverix during a rest period. Approximately 5 times baseline human strength, the healer replied. Your bones are now as dense as Valthera military armor, your muscles can function efficiently in gravity fields up to 15 standard units, and your cardiovascular system can process atmospheric mixtures that would be toxic to unmodified humans. And I'm still human? Absolutely, Queen Zaratiel confirmed. The modifications work with your existing genetics rather than replacing them. Your children will inherit both human and enhanced traits, creating offspring superior to either parent species alone. The third day brought the most dramatic changes as Marcus's brain and nervous system underwent expansion. New neural pathways formed at incredible speed, increasing his processing power and memory capacity. His senses sharpened to an almost painful degree, allowing him to perceive electromagnetic fields, detect chemical signatures in the air, and hear sounds across a vastly expanded frequency range. But the most startling change was his growing awareness of Queen Zaratiel's emotional state. Even when she left the room, he could sense her presence, feel her concern and love as if they were his own emotions. Is this the bonding beginning? He asked as the modifications neared completion. A preliminary connection only, she replied, though her voice carried new harmonics that his enhanced hearing could detect. The true bonding will occur during tomorrow's ceremony. What you are experiencing now is simply your enhanced nervous system becoming sensitive to Valthera bioelectromagnetic fields. When the process finally ended, Marcus felt like an entirely different person occupying the same body. Everything seemed brighter, clearer, more vibrant than before. He could hear conversations taking place 3 floors above them, smell the specific floral combinations in the palace gardens, and feel the minute gravitational variations caused by the planet's 3 moons. How do you feel? Master Healer Kethverix asked as Marcus stepped out of the modification chamber. Incredible, Marcus replied honestly. Like I've been living my entire life with my senses muffled and my body operating at minimum capacity. The sensation will stabilize over the next few days, the healer assured him. Your enhanced capabilities will become as natural as breathing. Now you must rest before tomorrow's ceremony. That evening, Queen Zaratiel showed Marcus through the palace's private quarters where they would live after the bonding ceremony. The rooms were vast and beautiful, with living walls that could display any environment from across the empire and furniture that adapted automatically to the user's preferences. These chambers have housed the royal family for over 1,000 years, she explained as they walked through halls lined with portraits of previous rulers. Each generation has added their own touches while maintaining the essential character. Marcus studied the portraits with his enhanced vision, noticing details that would have been invisible to him before. They all look remarkably similar to you. Strong, intelligent, beautiful. The royal bloodline has been carefully maintained for generations, she agreed. But you will bring new genetic diversity that will strengthen our descendants immeasurably. They paused before a portrait of a fierce-looking woman with battle scars across her pale blue skin. Your mother? Marcus guessed. Queen Velthera the Unconquered, Zara confirmed with obvious pride. She ruled for 3 centuries and never lost a battle. But she also never found love, never experienced the joy of partnership that we will share. Do you think she would approve of me? I think she would respect your courage and determination, Queen Zaratiel replied thoughtfully. She always said that the measure of a person is not their origin, but their choices. Your choices have been consistently honorable, Marcus. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lord Commander Siltherin, the head of the Imperial Guard. The massive Velthera warrior moved with deadly grace despite his ceremonial armor, and his pale eyes assessed Marcus with the calculating gaze of a professional soldier. Your Majesty, he said with a formal bow. Prince Consort Marcus. I come to discuss security arrangements for tomorrow's ceremony. Of course, Queen Zaratiel replied. Have there been any specific threats? Nothing overt, the commander replied carefully. However, intelligence reports suggest that certain noble families are concerned about the political implications of this union. There may be attempts to disrupt the ceremony. Marcus felt a chill of apprehension. What kind of disruption? Protests, political demonstrations, possibly attempts to challenge your worthiness through formal combat, Lord Commander Siltherin explained. Velthera law allows any noble to challenge a royal consort if they believe the choice threatens imperial stability. Combat? Marcus asked with growing alarm. Single combat with traditional weapons, the commander confirmed. If challenged, you would have the right to choose weapons and fighting style. Victory would establish your worthiness beyond question. Defeat would. He paused diplomatically. Defeat would end the engagement and, possibly my life, Marcus finished grimly. Such challenges are rare, Queen Zaratiel said quickly. And, your enhanced capabilities should give you significant advantage over any potential challenger. Should? Marcus noticed the qualifier. Lord Commander Siltherin's expression remained neutral. Your modifications are impressive, Prince Consort, but you lack training in Velthera combat techniques. If challenged by an experienced warrior, skill might prove more important than enhanced strength. Then, we need to make sure I'm prepared, Marcus said decisively. How long do we have? The ceremony begins at sunset tomorrow, the commander replied. Perhaps 12 hours. 12 hours to learn centuries of combat techniques? Marcus shook his head. That's not enough time. Perhaps not to master them, Queen Zaratiel said thoughtfully, but possibly enough to understand the principles. Lord Commander, could you arrange for intensive training throughout the night? It would be my honor, Siltherin replied with what might have been approval. Your willingness to prepare shows wisdom, Prince Consort. The training that followed was the most intense physical education of Marcus's life. In the palace's combat chambers, Lord Commander Siltherin put him through exercises designed to familiarize him with Velthera weapons and fighting styles. The alien martial arts emphasized fluid movement, precise strikes, and the use of momentum rather than brute force. Velthera combat is like a deadly dance, the commander explained as he demonstrated a complex series of movements with crystalline blades. Each motion flows into the next, creating patterns that confuse and overwhelm opponents. Marcus's enhanced reflexes and strength helped him learn faster than should have been possible, but he still felt clumsy compared to Siltherin's centuries of experience. The weapons felt alien in his hands, their balance and weight distribution unlike anything from Earth. You fight like a human, the commander observed after Marcus had attempted the same sequence for the 20th time. Aggressive, direct, focused on overwhelming force. This approach will not serve you well against a skilled Velthera opponent. Then, teach me to fight like a Velthera, Marcus said, frustration evident in his voice. I cannot, Siltherin replied bluntly. You are not Velthera. Your neural patterns, your instincts, your physical responses are all fundamentally human. Attempting to copy our style will only make you a poor imitation. Then, what do you suggest? The commander paused his demonstration and studied Marcus carefully. Perhaps you should fight like what you are. A human with enhanced capabilities. Use your advantages, not ours. What advantages? Humans are unpredictable, Siltherin explained. Your species thinks differently than ours, reacts differently, moves differently. A Vaelthera warrior expects certain patterns of attack and defense. You could surprise them by fighting in ways they have never encountered. For the next several hours, they worked on adapting human military techniques to Vaelthera weapons. Marcus drew on his memories of training with Earth Defense Forces, modifying combat techniques he had learned years ago to work with crystalline blades and energy shields. The approach felt more natural, more intuitive. Instead of trying to copy alien grace, he focused on human adaptability and tactical thinking. By dawn, he had developed a fighting style that was uniquely his own. Better, Lord Commander Siltherin pronounced as they concluded the final practice session. You will not win through superior skill, but you might win through superior unpredictability. It is a valid strategy. Might win isn't exactly confidence-inspiring, Marcus observed, wiping sweat from his forehead. In combat, nothing is certain except uncertainty, the commander replied philosophically. But your chances are better than they were 12 hours ago. The bonding ceremony began that evening as the 3 moons of Vaelthera Prime rose above the palace spires. The Great Hall was filled with nobles, officials, and representatives from across the empire, all gathered to witness their queen's marriage to an alien prince. Marcus stood at the ceremonial altar wearing formal robes that seemed to be woven from captured starlight. The garments were heavier than they appeared, their crystalline fibers conducting energy in patterns he couldn't understand. Beside him, Queen Zaratiel was radiant in traditional royal wedding attire that made her look like a goddess of light and beauty. The ceremony itself was unlike anything from human culture. Instead of spoken vows, the bonding process involved the literal joining of bioelectromagnetic fields through ancient Vaelthera technology. Crystalline resonators surrounding the altar began to glow as the ritual commenced, their harmonic frequencies creating music that seemed to emanate from the air itself. Are you ready, my beloved? Queen Zaratiel asked as Master Healer Kethvarix approached with the bonding crystals. I'm ready, Marcus replied, meaning it completely. The healer placed a hand-sized crystal against Marcus's chest, then pressed its twin against Queen Zaratiel's heart. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming. Marcus felt as though his consciousness was expanding beyond the boundaries of his body, reaching out to merge with another soul entirely. Suddenly, he could feel everything Queen Zaratiel was experiencing. Her love for him blazed like a star in his mind, warm and brilliant and absolutely certain. Her joy at their union, her hopes for their future, her deep commitment to their shared destiny, all flowed through the connection with crystalline clarity. And she could feel his emotions as well. His love for her, his determination to be worthy of her trust, his excitement about the adventure they were beginning together, his fierce protective instincts that would let nothing harm her. The connection created a feedback loop of positive emotion that made both of them feel as though they were floating on pure happiness. The bonding is complete, Master Healer Kethvarix announced as the crystals flared with brilliant light. Queen Zaratiel and Prince Consort Marcus are now joined in eternal union. May their partnership bring strength to the Empire and joy to their souls. The assembled crowd erupted in musical cheers that made the crystal walls of the hall ring like bells. But Marcus barely heard them. He was too overwhelmed by the incredible sensation of being connected to another consciousness. He could sense Queen Zaratiel's presence in his mind like a warm flame, comforting and energizing. How do you feel? She asked, though her voice seemed to come from inside his own thoughts as much as through his ears. Complete, Marcus replied, and realized it was true. The bonding had filled an emptiness he hadn't even known existed. Their moment of private communion was interrupted by a commotion near the main entrance to the hall. A group of nobles was advancing through the crowd, their expressions grim and determined. Leading them was a tall, imposing figure Marcus recognized as Duke Morthalon, one of the most powerful aristocrats in the Empire. Your Majesty, Duke Morthalon called out in a voice that carried clearly through the hall. I invoke the ancient right of challenge. The worthiness of your chosen consort must be proven in combat before the bonding can be recognized by law. A hush fell over the assembled crowd. Queen Zaratiel's hand tightened on Marcus's arm, and, through their newly formed bond, he could feel her anger and concern. Duke Morthalon, she replied with icy formality, the ceremony has been completed according to all proper traditions. Your challenge comes too late. The law is clear, the Duke insisted. The bonding ceremony creates the marriage, but formal challenges may be issued until the following dawn. I challenge Prince Consort Marcus to prove his worthiness through single combat. Marcus stepped forward, drawing on the confidence his training had given him.
I accept your challenge, Duke Morthalen. What are the terms?
Traditional weapons in the Circle of Honor, the Duke replied with a cold smile.
Combat continues until one participant yields or is unable to continue. And, if I win?
Then, your worthiness is established beyond question, and no further challenges may be issued.
The Duke's smile became predatory.
However, if you lose, the bonding is declared invalid, and Queen Zaratiel must choose a new consort from among the noble families of the Empire. Marcus understood the political calculation behind the challenge. Duke Morthalen wasn't just questioning his worthiness as an individual, he was attempting to prevent the alliance between the Valthera Empire and humanity by eliminating their newly formed marriage bond. Very well, Marcus said calmly.
I accept your terms. Let's get this over with.
The Circle of Honor was located in the palace's central courtyard, a raised platform surrounded by crystalline barriers that contained energy discharges from combat weapons. The assembled crowd followed the participants outside, eager to witness what would be the first formal challenge to a royal consort in over 2 centuries. Duke Morthalen selected traditional Valthera dueling swords, crystalline blades that could cut through most materials and conducted various forms of energy. Marcus chose the same weapons, though their alien weight and balance still felt uncomfortable in his hands.
Last chance to withdraw, the Duke said as they took their positions at opposite sides of the circle.
Yield now, and I will ensure your departure from Valthera Prime is swift and painless. Thanks for the generous offer, Marcus replied with grim humor.
But, I'll pass.
Through the bonding connection, he could feel Queen Zaratiel's emotions like a storm of concern and determination. Her faith in his abilities strengthened his resolve, even as her fear for his safety made his heart ache. The combat began with a traditional Valthera salute, then, Duke Morthalen attacked with flowing movements designed to overwhelm an inexperienced opponent. His blade work was exquisite, each strike and parry flowing into the next like deadly choreography. Marcus barely managed to defend himself during the opening exchange. The Duke's centuries of experience were evident in every movement, his attacks coming from unexpected angles with precise timing. Only Marcus's enhanced reflexes kept him from being cut down in the first few seconds. But, as the fight continued, Marcus began to implement the strategy Lord Commander Siltherin had suggested. Instead of trying to match the Duke's elegant techniques, he fought like a human warrior adapted to alien weapons. His movements were less graceful but more unpredictable, his attacks coming in patterns that violated Valthera combat traditions. The first time Marcus deliberately stumbled and turned the apparent mistake into a surprise thrust, Duke Morthalen's eyes widened with shock. He had never faced an opponent who fought with such apparent clumsiness yet such dangerous effectiveness.
Interesting technique, the Duke commented as they circled each other. Did they teach you to fight like a drunk peasant in whatever military academy you attended?
I'm mostly self-taught, Marcus replied, launching a series of strikes that forced the Duke to retreat.
Turns out cargo pilots learn to improvise when their lives depend on it.
The real turning point came when Marcus stopped trying to think like a trained swordsman and started thinking like an engineer solving a problem. Duke Morthalen's fighting style was elegant and effective, but it followed predictable patterns. Marcus began to analyze those patterns, looking for weaknesses he could exploit. The solution came to him during a particularly intense exchange. The Duke's attacks flowed in beautiful spirals, but that very beauty created tiny gaps in his defense. Openings that lasted only milliseconds, but might be enough for someone with enhanced reflexes and unconventional timing. Marcus waited for the perfect moment, then abandoned all pretense of formal swordplay. He dropped to one knee, swept the Duke's legs with his own sword hilt, and came up inside the nobleman's guard with the point of his blade at the aristocrat's throat. Yield, Marcus said quietly, breathing hard from the exertion. Duke Morthalen stood perfectly still, the crystalline blade's edge mere inches from his carotid artery.
Around them, the assembled crowd was silent with shock.
No one had expected the human to win, least of all through such an unorthodox technique. I yield, the Duke said finally, his voice carrying respect along with defeat. Prince Consort Marcus has proven his worthiness.
The challenge is withdrawn.
Marcus stepped back and lowered his weapon, relief flooding through him. Through the bonding connection, he felt Queen Zaratiel's joy and pride like warm sunshine in his mind. Duke Morthalon, Marcus said as they both sheathed their swords, I hope this doesn't mean we're enemies. I'm going to need allies in the nobility if I'm going to be effective as Prince Consort. The Duke studied him for a long moment, then smiled with what appeared to be genuine respect.
On the contrary, Prince Consort.
You have just demonstrated precisely the kind of unconventional thinking the Empire needs. I believe we will work together quite well.
The celebration that followed lasted until dawn.
Marcus found himself surrounded by nobles and officials eager to pledge their loyalty to the new Prince Consort. The successful challenge had established his credibility beyond question, and his diplomatic handling of Duke Morthalon afterward had demonstrated political wisdom. But the most important moment came when he and Queen